Nation. What's going on, everybody? Monday, January 26th. And depending on where you're at in the country right now, or even outside the country, I don't know. You might be snowed in, you might not. I am not, kind of, technically. Kids are virtual learning today, so their teachers probably just heard me through their Zooms greet you all into the stream, but that's okay. We don't care. No, we don't care. Maybe their assignment today should be watching old Swag talk about sports. Maybe that's what their assignment should be today. Let's get a quick sip. We've got a little sugar-free Mountain Dew Code Red here for a little bit of caffeine, just to keep the energy up. And then we've got some ice water to make sure that we stay hydrated. Now we're going back a little bit. That's what we need. TCSTG Rosetown SB Edgar. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the What's going on, everybody? A great weekend of football. I know that the Denver-New England game, I'm subscribed for years. Why is YouTube saying I'm not subscribed? Really? Well, I know for sure you've been subscribed for a while. I know you've been around for a while. I don't know why it says that. If you click on subscribe, does it let you resubscribe? What up, Sapper? Miranda, what's going on? That's weird. Who should you start, Drake May or Sam Darnold? What type of league are you playing in right now? I don't know. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the game here in a little bit. Let's go back to this weekend, though. I thought it was a great weekend of football. We had some good defensive play. We had some good defensive. Saying I'm not subscribed. That's weird. Normally have it. Hold on. Let me maybe. Can I change that setting right now? I'm going to see if I can change. Okay, the visibility is public. All of that is good. Slow mode is off. Let's turn it to everyone. So normally we have it where you have to be subscribed. Normally we have it set up so you have to be subscribed to be able to comment. Let me turn it off for a second and see if that just fixes it. All right, let's talk football now. You know, we had some good teams play this weekend. We had some good defenses. We had some good offenses. Let's start with the snowpocalypse, which we'll come back to in a couple of minutes. Actually, let's do this. Let's start with last night's game, LA and Seattle. And then we'll go to the next one because we're going to transition to a different topic at that point in time. Yes, sir? My dog's in here with me, hanging out. He was sleeping in the beanbag. Yeah, he has his own beanbag in my office to hang out and sleep with while I'm working. And he got up and he just came over and he just stood and stared at me. So, I don't know what he wants. Anyway. Last night, Seattle and the Rams. Another great game between two NFC West opponents coming from the best division in football this past year. I think everything we wanted from that matchup is exactly what we got. And when I did my prediction videos, I took the over on the points, went with Seattle. I think they were favored by 2.5. I said they would win by more than that, and they did. I mean, that's just a battle, man. And that's one of those games. I was watching the game with my son and my dad. My daughter was kind of in and out, roaming about, doing different things, sitting down, watching for a couple minutes, and then leaving. And one thing that I said about that game was when the punt returner for the Rams like fell down and the ball hit him and then bounced really right into Seattle's hands. I said to my son, I was like, "Oh man, that sucks. I feel so bad if Seattle wins on that." And he goes, "Well, don't you want Seattle to win? Should be rooting for that." And I said, "Yeah, but even though I picked Seattle to win, I don't really have a rooting investment in Seattle. I was rooting for Seattle mainly because of Mike McDonald, former defensive coordinator for the University of Michigan. I'd love to see him get a Super Bowl ring. I think that only solidifies the insane coaching staff and players that Michigan had for several years there. But I was like, man, that is like a terrible way if they were to win the game. And he's like, well, you want them to win the game, so why does it matter? And I'm like, I don't have like a rooting interest in this game outside of I just picked Seattle to win. Like, if the Rams win, it's not going to be any different. And I'm like, this has been such a good game. Like, I would hate for this game to end. Not really end because it wasn't close to ending. I'd hate for this game to be decided because that poor kid slipped and fell down and the ball bounced off of him. It was the second time he screwed up in the game. Like, you got to feel for that man, no matter who you're rooting for. Like, that's something that's going to eat at that kid all off season long. But then they kind of got it back a little bit later on because Tarek Woolen, who I don't know what he was doing. Here's the thing. So I read that, or I was reading all over the place. People were like, how are we throwing a taunting flag in an emotional game like this? And I watched the replay several times, and the official literally tells Woolen to knock it off, which is fine. Like, there's going to be talking, there's going to be some back and forth, but every once in a while, it's going to be the referee's jobs to try and reel that in a little bit and try to shut it down before it gets to be too much. It was already a highly contested game. There was some pushing and shoving at certain points, and the ref gave Woolen a warning and said, hey, knock it off. The thing is Woolen wasn't like in the middle of the field jawing back and forth with Rams players. The dude was literally standing on the Rams sideline shouting at players, shouting at Matthew Stafford, shouting at coaches. The referee tells him to knock it off. He doesn't knock it off. He stands there and continues to shout, so the ref threw a flag. It's not a tic-tac penalty. If the referee tells you to shut your mouth and get away from the sideline, all you got to do is shut your mouth and get away from the sideline. And it was hilarious because they throw the flag, they called the penalty. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you can't do that. And I look at my son and I said, Stafford's going to make him pay right now. Very next play, that's karma for you. Touchdown, Puka Nacua, corner of the end zone. The talking aspect of sports is really what drives me nuts. Because I'm a fiery competitor. At times, especially when I was younger and playing baseball at a higher level, I would have some things to say. My sophomore year in college, I was moved from being a catcher, first baseman, to pitching, and they ended up moving me into the bullpen. I became our closer. I led our league in saves that year. It was awesome, but I was like a fiery competitor, and there were a couple of times where I would get fired up on the mound, and I would maybe be a little more boisterous than what I needed to, and that there was one point where I got myself in trouble. We were playing Jackson. And Had 2 outs, came in. It was like the 3rd time I had pitched against them that season, and I hadn't given up a hit to them all season long. We had 2 outs. We had runners on first and second. I come in from the bullpen to try and get us out of that inning. And I had like a split finger that I would throw that was more like a knuckleball. It got away from me and it hit the kid and it loaded the bases. But that team remembered me from the last couple of times where I had shoved it up their backside and had let them know it walking off the mound. Very next pitch, I gave up a grand slam. So, listen, if you're gonna talk, you gotta be able to deal with the consequences. All right. I don't like it when I'm fine with the spirit, competitive fire. I'm fine with things like that. I am not okay when you can't just let your play do the talking, and it goes from being more like trash talk to trying to show the other team up, and that's where I have issues with it. So hopefully that's a learning experience for Woolen. Like, hey, shut your mouth next time. If you're going to chirp a little bit, which best cornerbacks in the league do it, right? Like Jalen Ramsey was known as the best for a long time. He was so good at it that he got A.J. Brown of all people to throw fisticuffs with him. So you gotta be able to hold your own. I get that, but it's 4th down. You stopped him on 3rd down. You're winning the game. You're getting ready to get the ball back. You get the ball back. Your offense is playing great. Sam Darnold's playing great. He's playing a great game. Go down the field and score another touchdown and let your play do the talking. There's no reason to stand on the Rams sideline and yell at the opposing team. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Seattle got lucky, man. Seattle got lucky. Hold on just a second. My dog doesn't want to hang out with me anymore. I'm a fiery coach too, STG. Absolutely. Absolutely I am. But especially considering the fact that I coach youth sports, I don't get fiery with the opposing team. Like, there's no reason for me to talk like that to kids. Now, if the other coaches are a little something, then we had an incident in the fall. My son plays travel baseball. We were wrapping up our fall season against a team. We had beat them in game 1 pretty easily by like 8 runs, I think it was. My son was 2 for 3 with a double and 2 RBIs in the first game. He had already had 1 hit in the second game, and we are in like the last inning. We're down by like 4 at this point. They're beating us in the second game. My son comes up to the plate, and the coach in the other dugout he goes, easy out, let's go, easy out. And I thought to myself, I was like, what the are you talking about? We whipped your butt in game 1. My kid's got 3 hits against you, and you're yelling easy out? So I kind of looked over there because I was coaching first base. I kind of looked over there, and I was like, we're really talking to kids like that? And he looked over at me, and he's like, no, like, I'm telling my kids to take the easy out. I'm not saying he's an easy out. I was like, well, you should pick your words a little better. My kid hits a line drive to right field, and I'm like, yep, there we go, easy out. And my son comes down and gives me 5. Because you best believe he heard it. Like, he heard the coach say that, because I even saw him when the coach started laughing and was like, easy out, easy out. I even saw my kid's eyes dart over to him like, are you kidding me? And he gets a base hit to the right field. I was like, there's an easy out. And my son, he was like, yeah. He gave me a high five. Like, listen, I'm all for the fiery competitive spirit. I get it. I get a little too amped up sometimes myself. I got to try and reel myself back in sometimes. But sometimes you also have to know, like, maybe not a good time to talk. And after looking at that situation with my kid, I thought to myself, you know what? I probably shouldn't have said anything, because now that he says he was telling his team to take the easy out, it makes a little bit more sense. I don't think he worded it the way that he should have. And when you're dealing with like 12 and 13-year-olds and they hear you say that, they're gonna also think the same thing. So yeah, be a little bit better as a coach. Be a little bit better as a coach. But then it's like, even at the same time too, afterwards, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just let it go, because that makes a little bit more sense. And when we were shaking hands afterwards, I apologized. I was like, my bad, fellas. And they were kind of shitty about it. They were like, yeah, all right, okay. I was like, my bad, fellas. Have a good weekend. Like, I owned it. One of their dads threatened to beat the shit out of me, though, from the stands. It is what it is. You have to have some fire, right? Like, there are some guys, some women, athletes, that they just keep their mouth closed and they go play. There's other guys that always have this like edge to them. And having an edge is fine, but holy, like, you cannot let it get away from you like it did last night. You want to talk a little bit of ish on the way off the field, feel free. But once the referee tells you to stop and to get away, you better shut your mouth and just walk. And the thing that I love even more about it is Nick Emenware, who is a safety for the Seattle Seahawks. My number one safety in last year's draft. I had him as, this is interesting. Let's take a little trip here real quick. Where did I have him ranked overall on my big board last year? Because he was phenomenal last night. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't think I have. I think I deleted my big board now that I think about it. I think I just have the mock draft from last year. Where did I have him going? I had Minnesota taking him at 24. He went at 18. So I had him inside my top 32 players for sure if I had him going in the first round. I might have had him at least top 15. He's good, though. He is really good. Very good. Like, I was even giving it up to Nick Emenware, where I was like, because he came off the sideline and he was letting Woolen know, like, dude, shut up. Like, knock it off. And he's a rookie. And if there's a rookie telling you that you're screwing up, you might want to just shut up and listen. You might just want to shut up and listen. Emenware is a beast. He is so good. When I scouted him, I said he was basically another Kyle Hamilton. Like, that's how good. Because I think at one point I said I wouldn't be shocked if the Ravens took him. And paired him with Kyle Hamilton and that defensive back. Let's move on to the other game, the afternoon game. You got to feel for the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix and Broncos fans. I would be willing to bet that 90% of Broncos fans truly believe deep down that if Bo Nix was healthy yesterday, that they beat the Patriots and they're playing in a Super Bowl. I don't think Nix would have made that big of a difference. If I'm being honest with you. If I'm being honest. I think maybe it makes the first part of the game potentially a little bit more interesting. But outside of that one like weird shovel pass, backward fumble, Stidham wasn't bad. He had that obviously terrible fumble that ended up turning into 7 for New England. And obviously he had the second half got a little bit tougher, but a lot of that had to do with the weather too. Like, the weather was not easy. But in the first half, like, Stidham wasn't all that bad. It was a good defensive matchup, which is fun to watch in the NFL sometimes. Obviously, we love scoring, we love points, we love offense. But a good old-fashioned barn burner between a couple of defenses is not the worst thing in the world to watch in sports. It's fun. It's fun. But I would be willing to bet that 90% of Broncos fans feel like if Bo Nix is healthy yesterday, that the Broncos win and they're playing in the Super Bowl. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I don't. Stidham wasn't all that bad. The second half was messy. Nix maybe helps with his legs a little bit, but Stidham was getting outside the pocket and moving. You could tell that he hadn't thrown a pass all year long. You could tell it had been a while since he had been in action. But I think to say, oh, we would have won if Bo Nix had played takes a lot away from the Patriots. And Drake May was not great yesterday, but Drake May did what he needed to at certain points, especially using his legs and getting outside the pocket, running for a touchdown early in the game. Like, Drake May wasn't great, but he did what he needed to at certain points. And for the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl, they had to play some pretty decent defenses. The Broncos were what, like the number 4 defense? The Texans were the number 2 defense the week prior. And I know like a lot of people are being hypercritical of Drake May right now. Here's the thing too. People are being hypercritical of Drake May right now because he's in the MVP discussion. If Drake May wasn't in the MVP discussion, he would be like, people would be saying like, oh, like he's doing what he needs to do and he's willing the Patriots to wins and he's not putting up great stats, but he's at least doing this and he's doing like, that's how people would be talking about him. But because he's an MVP candidate and he's not putting up MVP numbers, all of a sudden Drake May, people are like, well, he's not playing well. The Broncos don't have an easy defense, and it doesn't get any easier when you basically are handcuffed in the second half because of the weather, right? Like, they needed to run the football, and they did just as much as they could with Ramondre Stevenson running the football. Drake May picked up yards on the ground with his legs. He almost ran for more yards than he had passing. So he did what he needed to do, and they just relied on their defense. That was the Patriots' game plan. As soon as the snow started to fall, it was protect the football, high percentage plays. If it's not there, then we're not going to do anything with it. If you watch the game, Tony Romo was talking towards the end of the game about a play where it was third down, Drake May rolls out, and he's looking at one guy, and when he sees the guy is not open there on the right sideline, he just throws the ball out of bounds. And Tony Romo says, I think it's a little bit too early for that, but you could tell that the Patriots were being cautious because he had one read, the read wasn't there, get rid of the football. That's probably exactly what Josh McDaniels called on that play. So the Patriots knew what they were doing, but I think to also say that Denver wins that game if Bo Nix was there, I think that's taking a lot away from Mike Vrabel, who has done an absolutely fantastic job. This is a guy that gets canned by Tennessee after making Tennessee a AFC contender for a few years. Mike Vrabel all of a sudden isn't good enough. Let go, doesn't get a job last year, gets his, I would say, dream job with New England, and now he's headed to a Super Bowl. That's got to feel good for Mike Vrabel. That's got to feel good for the Vrabels, absolutely. And if you're a Tennessee fan, probably doesn't feel great if you're a Tennessee fan either. So, no, I don't think the Broncos automatically win that game if Bo Nix plays. How do we know that Bo Nix wouldn't have made some ill-advised throws? He's known to do that. I don't think we can just sit back and be like, oh, well, Bo Nix would have extended plays on the ground with his feet. Would he? I mean, that New England defense is good. They are a solid defense. They had a great game plan yesterday. They executed very well. If they would have been preparing for Bo Nix, I do not doubt for 1 second that they would not have had a solid game plan for Bo Nix either. I do not doubt for a second that they wouldn't have had a solid gameplay for Bo Nix as well. But I think the thing that needs to be discussed that a lot of people were kind of talking about yesterday, I got a text that was like, man, this is a fun game. Watching these two teams battle in the snow, that's a ton of fun. And my response was, man, a good old-fashioned playoff snow game? Who doesn't love that? But there was a lot of people yesterday as well that were essentially saying that playing that game in the weather is ridiculous. Why are we allowing the weather to essentially dictate the outcome of a game in the NFL? And there was a lot of people arguing for the fact that every single team should play in a dome unless you play in a fair weather city where you're not going to have to deal with it. What do we think? What do we think about that? Because I have a hard time saying okay to that. Brad's in the chat right now. Brad's in the chat. I'm going to throw Brad under the bus for a second. Brad's a big Seattle fan. Brad, congratulations to your Seahawks. You get to watch your Seahawks in the Super Bowl. You got to watch your Mariners make a run at the World Series and come up just short. I remember Brad saying to me back in October, Kyle, how do the Tigers play in Detroit and not have a roof on their stadium? Because there was a game against Seattle that was delayed because of the rain and weather and elements. And Brad was like, how are we playing baseball in October in Detroit and we don't have a roof over the stadium? The Lions play indoors. I don't know, man. I have a hard time arguing. I have a hard time arguing that every team should play indoors to keep the elements out of it. If you play in a city where it's going to snow or it's going to rain a lot, then it's up to you guys to make the best decision possible for your team. Now, I will say I do think Detroit should have a dome or at least a roof because Michigan's weather, just like here in Indiana, can change on the snap of a finger. You got to prepare for it. Like, I think Buffalo is making the right decision. Like, Buffalo's new stadium, it's going to be, I think it's partially closed. I think there's going to be an opening in the top, but it is still going to be partially closed. And I think they're making the right decision because we have seen where Buffalo plays, and especially considering the fact Buffalo has been in the playoffs the last few years, where they play at, it is not fun when you essentially have to pay your fans to come. You have to pay your fans to come out and shovel your stadium to get people in and out of it. That's a bit much. If you're having multiple games over the past several years being canceled and moved to different stadiums because you're getting so much snow, maybe you should think about playing indoors. I mean, Denver, yeah, they had a lot of snow yesterday, but if the game had been in New England, it would have been worse. It would have been basically the entire game as far as I know. But I don't know. I like those games. I think they're fun. I think it's different, and I'm okay with different. If you're gonna play on the road in snow weather games, then build your team to be able to compete in it. Simple as that. If the Lions would have been in the playoffs and the Lions would have had to have traveled to, I don't know, Chicago in this weather, and they would have had to play on the road in Chicago, 10 degrees, snow falling like crazy. If Detroit loses that game because they're built to run fast indoors because that's where you play half of your games, that's not Detroit's, that's on Detroit at that point. The weather, it's not the weather's fault, it's Detroit's fault. Build a team that can compete in the weather then. Have a solid run game. Make sure your offensive line is good to go. Let's go to the pulse of the nation and see what y'all have to say. Rhonda, come on, Kyle. Everyone should know the outcome of the game would have been different with Nick. Stidham was okay, but Nick's is better. We know the chemistry with his wife. Everyone should know the outcome. I don't agree with that. In fact, Ben Albright, who's a very prominent reporter, media person for the Denver Broncos out there in Denver, he actually agrees. He was on Twitter last night essentially saying, I don't think Nick's being healthy is the difference in this game. Could it have been? Yes, but I'm not going to argue that would have absolutely been the difference in the game. Knicks could have made turnovers. The game plan for Knicks could have been a lot different for the Patriots. In the second half, with the way the weather was, you aren't going to put the ball in Knicks' hands anyway the entire time. You're going to have to be able to run the football, and that's something that Denver just struggled to do consistently, was run the football. Baseball and football are differently. Football players on in most weather. Yeah. I'm not saying that they're the same by any means. If it came across as that's not what I meant. I was just bringing it up because you had given me a hard time about it earlier in the year, or I guess late last year, back in October. So I was bringing that up as just a chance to poke at you a little bit. Yeah, no, baseball and football are completely different. In October, for the most part, you're not going to find yourself playing in terrible weather. Anna, your name is now changed on YouTube. Did you change that, or are the names going back to what they used to be? Huh. Wait, both the Pats and the Broncos play in cold weather in an open stadium. The elements wouldn't have changed if the stadium was swapped. Who's upset? The fans of the individual teams or bettors? I mean, the bettors part might be a good choice. Which, if you were taking the over in that game anyway, you were doing it wrong. So, the Pats really sucked, so the Broncos actually had a chance against them in the game. Stidham didn't throw any interceptions until the last second of the game. The loss wasn't on Stidham. Wait a second. Why are you so upset with the Pats right now? Anna, thank you for changing your handle. Everybody should do that. Would the Seahawks have won with their backup quarterback versus Knicks? I don't understand the question because that hasn't happened. We're comparing apples and oranges at this point. The Broncos didn't play the Seahawks without Knicks. They played the Patriots. So we're talking about that game, not what if scenarios with the Seahawks. Are you saying if the Seahawks, or are you saying if the Broncos would have won, would they have won in the Super Bowl against Seattle? I think Seattle's a better team than the Patriots. I think their defense overall is tougher. I think even in my matchup video, I even said, I don't think even without Knicks, like, I think this game could still be close. Like, I did not feel like the Patriots were just going to walk all over the Broncos this weekend. I think if the Broncos would have won against New England, I think Seattle would have walked them in 2 weeks. I will say that. If Stidham was starting against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, I would have taken the under on the points. And I don't think Stidham even throws for 100 yards in that game. The Patriots back up. So, like, if the Patriots back up, I got you. Okay, now we're staying in the same place. So if Drake May would have been hurt, this is going to be a really stupid question, but I am blanking right now. Who is the backup? I just talked about it last week. Is it Dobbs? Don't mind me. I can't even remember who the backup is. It is Dobbs. Okay, so we talked about this last week, kind of, right? Because we were talking about backup quarterbacks. So I get the question now. I understand where you're coming from. So if Knicks would have been healthy and Dobbs would have played, Dobbs is a better backup than Stidham. I'll say that right now. There's a reason that Stidham hasn't thrown any passes this year. There's a reason that Stidham doesn't have any passing attempts in 2 years. There's a reason he was out of the league for a year. There's a reason that he only has like 5 career starts, I think. Dobbs, like, electrified a couple of different teams. Was it the Vikings a couple of years ago? Was it the Vikings that Dobbs was with a couple of years ago where, like, he had just some insane games at the end of the year? Was it after Kirk Cousins got hurt? My mind is escaping me this morning. My apologies. I think the Patriots have a better chance of beating the Broncos against Bo Nix with Dobbs than the Broncos had beating Drake May and the Patriots with Jarrett Stidham, if that makes sense. Because Dobbs is a better backup quarterback and has been in the league longer, playing more games. He was also in Pittsburgh for a while, too. But like I said, too, like, it's unfortunate, right? Like, I'm there with Broncos fans. Like, Broncos fans saying to themselves, man, we could have been in a Super Bowl with Bo Nix. I get that because I say the same thing, right? Like, the Detroit Lions last year, I firmly believe that they beat the Washington Commanders last year if they are healthy. Aiden Hutchinson had been hurt. They had lost several players in their secondary. They had lost linebackers. Like, last year, the Lions were missing 10 starters from week 1 on defense in their second round game against Washington. And I fully believe that had their defense been healthy last year, that they beat Washington and they potentially go to the Super Bowl. So I'm playing the what if with the Lions last year too. Like, heck, you could say it about them this year, right? Sam Laporta gets hurt. Frank Ragnow retires. They dealt with injuries on the offensive line. Kirby Joseph is hurt. Brian Branch is hurt. Terrion Arnold is hurt. I mean, they were losing guys left and right this year too. So I get the feeling. Trust me, I absolutely get the feeling when Broncos fans are like, man, we could have went to the Super Bowl. I don't think you're completely wrong in that, but I also don't think that Knicks automatically takes you to the Super Bowl either, because I do think the Patriots would have given you a run for your money. So I get the what ifs there. Absolutely. So this weekend, I am... If you guys have been watching Headliners Unfiltered for the last few weeks since we started doing this here in January, you remember a couple of weeks ago that I went I would say an A-plus tirade about Arthur Smith and what I think about Arthur Smith. It's not good if you didn't see it. I don't think anything of Arthur Smith. So when I'm scrolling through Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and I see that the Ohio State University hired Arthur Smith to be their new offensive coordinator, I lost it. I lost it. I laughed so hard when I saw the breaking news that Arthur Smith is going to be the new offensive coordinator for Ohio State. As a Michigan fan, good luck, OSU. Good luck. You just hired one of the least creative offensive play callers in all the NFL. Now, the reason Ohio State may have hired Arthur Smith is because his dad owns FedEx, and maybe they're trying to get a little bit of money out of the Smith family for their NIL funds, which maybe that ends up being a big brain play, but I tell you what, he is not going to be anywhere close to the play caller that they've had recently. I'd rather have Chip Kelly back in Ohio State. So I laughed. I laughed so hard. And I was like, there is no possible way that there could be a coaching hire that makes me laugh as hard as I did when I saw that Arthur Smith went to Ohio State. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers said, hold my beer. What are you doing? What are you doing, Roonies? Why are you hiring Mike McCarthy to be your head coach? This is an organization that said that we're tired of finishing over 500 every single year, and we're tired of having an early exit from the playoffs. You know what we want in Pittsburgh? We need something different. All you did was hire a fatter version of Mike Tomlin. What are you doing? Mike McCarthy is not nearly as good of a head coach as what Mike Tomlin is. It's not even close. Mike McCarthy is the exact tirade I went over a couple of weeks ago when it came to reusing NFL head coaches. What are we doing? You hired Mike McCarthy because he's from Pittsburgh, so you guys can go 9-8 again next year, barely sneak into the playoffs, and get your butts bounced once again? That's the change you want in your organization? I am sorry. There is no way that Mike McCarthy is going to handle the locker room the same way that Mike Tomlin did. There is no way. Mac and Ethan here with the team are Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and they have been calling for Tomlin to be fired for at least 3 years now. And every single time they complain about Mike Tomlin, I ask them why. Do you understand how difficult it is to have a franchise and a coach that never finishes under 500 and always has a shot at the playoffs? I understand you're Pittsburgh and maybe you have different standards. How many NFL fans out there, if I told you that I'll give you a head coach for the next 10 years, you will always finish over 500 and you will always have a shot at the playoffs, but you may never win a Super Bowl? A majority of fans would absolutely take that. They would absolutely take that. But guess what? You just fired him to bring in the same exact thing. There's no way Rodgers stays with... I don't think him and McCarthy have that type of relationship. I don't think so. But let's just play the game. Let's play the game. Let's play the game that Aaron Rodgers just does come back. So we have a guy, a quarterback that's well on the wrong side of 40. With a head coach that is mediocre at best. Hold on a second. I just want to see something. I have to see something here real quick. Mike McCarthy, 62. He started coaching in Dallas in 2020. With all of the talent that he's had in Dallas, he had a record of 6-10, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5, 7-10. Where'd Dallas go? Those years that Dallas finished 12-5 and won the division, where did they go in the playoffs? Remember a couple of years ago when they got bounced in the first round by the wild card Packers at home? Remember that? Good job with your 12-5 records, Mike McCarthy. Where'd the Cowboys go? So you fired Mike Tomlin because he wasn't winning Super Bowls, because he was getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs, finishing over 500 every single year, to hire a guy that's older than Mike Tomlin that does the same exact thing. But you know what Mike Tomlin has done over the last several years? He has kept your team, your organization, and your locker room from being the laughingstock of the NFL. Because at least Mike Tomlin controlled Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown and George Pickens and all these other divas that go elsewhere and become absolute lunatics that can't even keep their head on straight. At least you had a guy that could control the locker room. You really think Mike McCarthy is going to come in and do that? I get it. We all want to win Super Bowls. We all want to have a team that takes you deep into the playoffs, that every single year has a shot to win. And if you're the Roonies and you felt like the Steelers were a lot better than what you've seen on the field the last few years. Oh, let me make one other point real quick too. Is it Mike Tomlin's fault that the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't plan for life after Ben Roethlisberger? What have you all been doing at the quarterback position for the last several years? You play in a division that has Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. And y'all have been playing spin the bottle at the quarterback position for several years now because you didn't plan for life after Ben Roethlisberger. You didn't plan for life after Ben Roethlisberger. It didn't work out, so then you took a shot on Kenny Pickett, who should have never been drafted where he was. Shocker, Kenny Pickett didn't work out. He never was going to. And you've been playing what if since then. Is that Mike Tomlin's fault? Is it Mike Tomlin's fault that y'all don't know what you're doing at the quarterback position? No. That's not Mike Tomlin's fault either. The Rooneys are out here saying, we need a change within our organization. Now, let's just say how it is too. He wasn't fired. Mike Tomlin was not fired. He stepped down, but I would be willing to bet he didn't step down. I'm sure that was a conversation with ownership. Mike, we want to go in a different direction. We would like it if you step down. So you want something different. So you're tired of finishing 500. You're tired of an early round exit from the playoffs. So then what do? You hire Mike McCarthy. You have all of these younger coaches out there that could give life to your team, to your organization, to the players. And you go with the 62-year-old reused head coach that couldn't win anything in Dallas with Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and some pretty decent defenses. Couldn't do anything in the playoffs there either. So you brought in the same exact type of guy? Come on. How stupid of a hire. I laughed my ass off when I saw that Arthur Smith was headed to Ohio State to be their offensive coordinator. I about tore a stomach muscle when I saw Mike McCarthy was headed to Pittsburgh. How terrible of a hire. All of these great head coaching candidates out there right now, and that is your choice. You know why? Because McCarthy's from Pittsburgh. That's why they hired him. Doc and Mac they're not happy about the hire. They did not understand it either. STG, should this be a standalone video? I got you. It'll probably end up being tomorrow, because by the time the video downloads, I edit it and I get it out there. TJ, I've told you about Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn deserves another year. I do. I think he deserves another year. This was not it. This was not it. Give him another year. I think he was. I don't think that Aaron Glenn was really head coaching material anyway. But now that he's there, I think he deserves time. Kareem, I think it's a league-wide issue. I'm interested to see what the Rams do if they don't get to another Super Bowl next year, or if the 49ers, with their window closing, teams don't have the patience. Yeah. I would agree with that. We live, further and further and further, year after year, we go with our society. It gets worse and worse when it comes to instant gratification, and sports is exactly the same thing. You see it all the time, right? Like, you see it all the time. Like, if you're not getting something right away, not every organization is like that, but fans are. And I'm sure that's part of the reason why Mike Tomlin was kind of done in Pittsburgh, because he was tired of hearing fans year after year get upset with him when he's doing the most that he can with his teams. Again, he doesn't have a quarterback. Let's talk about that real quick. This is, I want to go through the quarterbacks that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had since Ben Roethlisberger decided to retire. What year was that? So he was there in 2017. He was there in 2018. He was there in 2019. He only played 2 games in 2019. Man, it feels like he's been out of the league longer than that. He was there in 2020. I went way back too far. He was there in 2021. Man, it feels like Roethlisberger's been gone way longer than that. 2021 was his last year, right? Yeah, it was. Okay, so Ben Roethlisberger dealt with some injuries. Ben Roethlisberger retires after the 2021 season. You had Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky on your team as your quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett drafted in the first round, plays 13 games, throws 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Trubisky threw 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So that was in 2022. In 2023, you had Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitchell Trubisky. Kenny Pickett threw 6 touchdowns that season. In 2024, you decide to go with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. See where that got you. In 2025, you decided to go with Aaron Rodgers. Not terrible. But again, it's the same thing, right? Like, your answer to Ben Roethlisberger was Kenny Pickett, but you knew that Ben Roethlisberger was on his last leg and had been on his last leg for a while. So to not plan in advance was terrible on the Steelers' part. And that's not on Mike Tomlin. You've got a GM, a front office, and an ownership group that should have recognized Ben Roethlisberger is probably done in 2 to 3 years. You should have drafted a quarterback then. So when we take a look at... So what did we say? He retired... He retired in 2022. 2020 was a great quarterback draft. Where did Pittsburgh draft? They didn't. They didn't draft in the first round. Who was Pittsburgh's first draft pick? They went with Chase Claypool at 49 overall. Jalen Hurts was drafted after Chase Claypool. You could have had Jalen Hurts in the second round in 2020. Hurts could have sat behind Roethlisberger for 2 to 3 years and then would have been ready to go. How much different do you think the Pittsburgh organization looks right now if they would have drafted Jalen Hurts instead of Chase Claypool? Who else? Is there another quarterback? What other quarterbacks were drafted and where? Do I type with 2 fingers? No. Why are you asking that? Jacob Eason was drafted. James Morgan. Nothing really there. I wish I could just separate it by position. It won't let me. Just think about how much better your team is if in 2020 you say, we're going to draft Jalen Hurts in the second round instead of Chase Claypool so we can go ahead and sit him behind Roethlisberger. So when Roethlisberger is done, we have some help. Arizona opted for Josh Rosen over Lamar Jackson. Oh, yeah. In 2021, they drafted Najee Harris in the first round at 24 overall. I'm not going to argue that one too much. I don't think that was a terrible draft pick. They went with Pat Freiermuth in the second round. Kyle Trask was drafted in the second round. Kellen Mond, Davis Mills. I mean, Davis Mills wouldn't have been the worst pick in the world if you would have taken him over Pat Freiermuth. You don't even use Freiermuth anymore. And you're out here trading for Jonnu Smith and not using him either. Another Arthur Smith failure. But I mean, that's like that. I don't have to go into it much more at this point, but that's my issue with this organization right now is Mike Tomlin is the scapegoat because you're tired of not winning Super Bowls and not going deep into the playoffs and finishing 500. But at the end of the day, it's not Mike Tomlin's fault that you didn't draft a quarterback. You should have drafted Jalen Hurts over Lamar Jackson. You should have drafted Jalen Hurts over Chase Claypool. Kareem, I mean, look at Green Bay, right? You hit the nail on the head, right? Brett Favre did not love that Aaron Rodgers was drafted, but you know what? Green Bay's been highly successful since then. Aaron Rodgers didn't love that they drafted Jordan Love, but you know what? Green Bay's been successful since then. They continue to set themselves up for success because they know when to draft a quarterback. Any team could have had Brock Purdy. Terry, I will agree with you there. The decision for Matt Canada and Arthur Smith to be the team's offensive coordinator the last couple of years, I think was poor decision making. I will say that for Mike Tomlin. That inevitably could have been a huge issue. Headliner Nation, hopefully y'all enjoyed this stream. Headliners Unfiltered. Here, Mondays and Thursdays at noon. We tried a night stream last week. Didn't turn out that great. Probably will not be doing it again anytime soon. But we will be back on Thursday once again. And I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you all giving me your thoughts, your comments, your opinions. That's what this show is all about. And hopefully you all are enjoying it because I'm really enjoying doing this show. I will say one thing. Talk to people in Discord. After this video posts and you can comment on it, I need you all to come back and comment on it and just tell people who are coming back to watch to start showing up to the live show. Because I would love to have more viewers in here. I would love to get a show where we can get over 50 concurrent viewers at a time. I would love to get to that place. That's goal number one. 50 concurrent viewers at a time. Headliner Nation, appreciate y'all being here. I need y'all to stay safe. I need y'all to stay healthy. Because if you do both of those things, then I will catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.